welcome back, I should say. It's been a while since I've been live streaming here on the first live streaming channel that I stream on. Taking a look at Photoshop today. We're going to take a look at a few of my favorite new features in the new release of Photoshop CC for 2019. It actually just got released, what is it, 2 weeks ago now at Max? I don't know, it's all becoming a blur. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining me live today. It's great to be back. I've been kind of out of the loop for the last few months, getting ready for Max, and hadn't had a lot of time to live stream. Haven't been home to live stream. So today I get to get back to it. Hey Rufus, welcome. Glad to see you here. Victoria as well, and everyone coming in. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to jump right to it. No need to punish the people that are on time. And so let's get to my computer. You guys, if you did watch the Max keynote, you may remember this asset. This is the one I kind of kick things off with. I'm going to show some of the things I showed in the keynote, but I'm also going to dig a little deeper since I have a little bit more time today. And I'm also going to show a feature that I didn't get a chance to show in the keynote that is also one of my favorite new features. So let's get to it. All right, first and foremost, one of the features I showed was the ability now, if you might remember before, if you ever wanted to edit text in Photoshop, you'd have to find the type tool, you'd have to click on, find the type, click on it, click on the wrong spot, you're gonna actually be adding type. Well now, just like InDesign and just like Illustrator, InDesign I think has had this since day one, but now you can just, even with the move tool, double click to edit text. It's a little thing, it's what we call a JDI, just do it. The Photoshop team has a lot of these little JDIs in this release, but you are now able to just go in and double click to edit your text. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to change the text to what I wanted to say. And then the other thing is, you remember you would either have to click on the commit button or on the right key on the keyboard to commit to that. And that is no longer the case as well. You can still do those things. You can still grab the type tool. You can still do all the things the old way. But now if you just click away, it will auto commit. So I don't have to worry about clicking a little checkbox or hitting the enter key, or maybe if I hit the return key by mistake, I'm wiping out the text that I just typed. So a lot of that just goes away in this new version. So double click to commit, double click to edit and click away to commit. Now let's go back to that. Let's jump in and let's say we want to change color. Now, of course, I've got swatches, which I've had for years. Your most recent swatches will always be at the top. That's fairly new. That's not too many years old. But what's new is I've switched my, or at least I had switched it. Let me switch it back. I switched my view to the new color wheel. So the color wheel, when you see it, you'll say, oh yeah, I've seen that before. You just haven't seen it in Photoshop. So the new color wheel, which works in color harmonies, and of course is resizable, which is kind of nice. Because a lot of the older color panels and palettes or whatever weren't resizable. So this one's new and resizable, and it works in color harmonies and opposites and things like that. So when I click in a part of the spectrum that I want, then I can drill down and narrow down to the color I want. You can always still save a swatch the way, all of the color panels let you save a swatch, so you can always get back to that color. All right, so now that I've got that color, if I click away to commit, that's the color, and I'm not liking the blue. How about something more in the purple or pinkish or fuchsia? Get that. Maybe something a little darker. Maybe something like that. And let's go maybe to the orange. You guys, you've been here before. You just keep clicking around until you get the color you want, or maybe you decide that that's not the color you want. So the big feature I'm leading up to, just like I did in the keynote, is Photoshop has had the ability to do one undo since day one. Then the feature got added to do a step backwards, or basically work with history. And the step backward command, once you did Command Z, to go further back was always something weird, Command Shift Z or some other weird keyboard shortcut to go backwards and forward. Now it's just like it is in all the rest of your Adobe applications, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, all the way back, without having to learn anything else. For those of us who are, used to the keyboard shortcut that we learned, we'll have to unlearn it and learn the new way, which I guess you could set it back up in the keyboard shortcuts if you kind of like the old way, but I highly recommend you learn the new way, because it is like all the rest of your applications. You won't have to do it a special way just in Photoshop anymore. So Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, as I said on stage at Max. I am happy for that keyboard shortcut change, because again, I don't have to think about it anymore. It's just like it is, and just like it should have been all along in Photoshop. All right, so let's keep going. Next thing is I want to resize the type. The type should be a little bit bigger. So I'll hit Command T to bring up free transform like we always do. But again, another new JDI, new feature is that proportional scale is now on by default. So what does that mean? That means before, if you wanted to scale this text, you wanted to make it bigger or smaller, if you wanted to keep it shaped the same way without distorting it, you would hold down the Shift key. Now I'm not holding down the Shift key because proportional scale is on by default. I'm not stretching my type. I just bring it up, make it bigger, and again, auto commit, click away. I don't have to think about it anymore, because that's the default it should be. And that's also the default when people are saying, well, no, it's been all these years, I'm used to the Shift key. The Shift key is the Shift key. It's always been the Shift key. All the new modern applications don't require the Shift key. So if you think about programs like Adobe XD, no Shift key required. You think about other modern programs from other developers, no Shift key required. So it is time that we move away from this requiring you to hold down the Shift key 99% of the time when you want things proportional, as opposed to that 1% of the time when you want to stretch something. So now it's the other way around. You want to stretch something, you do hold down the Shift key. So if I did want to stretch that type, I'm holding down the Shift key now, and now I can stretch and distort the type. But if I don't want to do that, then I don't hold down the Shift key, and it will keep it proportional from here on out. So again, yeah, that's going to take a few minutes to get used to. I got used to it like in 5 minutes. As a matter of fact, I was working back and forth between the new version and the old version for a while. And whenever I would go into the old version and forget to hold down the Shift key, it would drive me crazy. So that is one that I quickly learned. Yay, I don't have to hold down the Shift key anymore to scale things proportionally. All right, next up. Just quick recap of those few things in this document. Double click to edit text. Once you make your change, click away to auto commit. Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, undo. The brand new color wheel, again, you still have all your old color methods, all the old sliders, all the old ways to do it. Now you've just got another new way. And again, you can add swatches the way you would want. All right, and then last but not least, the scale proportionally by default now, not having to hold down the Shift key. So Satine is asking, is there a way to have the mini bridge back? I can't predict the future. If I could, I'd be doing something different probably. But I can't predict the future, but the reason that the mini bridge and things like those kind of panels went away is because they were Flash based. And once we made the decision to remove all the Flash technology from the applications, that was one of the casualties. Mini bridge went away. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be rewritten and re-resurrected back into a more modern technology. It's just I can't promise you that. I can't say if that's going to happen one way or the other. All right. Yep, you still hold down the Shift key for vectors, correct. And hopefully that will change one day as well. I don't know why we would want to hold them down for vectors either. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. All right, so this is probably one of my again, I didn't get a chance to show everything in the keynote. This is one that kind of fell off the map. I didn't get a chance to show this feature, but it is definitely one of my favorites. And that is the ability to tell ContentAware Fill what it can and can't use. Let me give you the example. I'm going to make a selection. So I'm just going to use my lasso tool here, wherever my lasso tool is. There's my lasso tool. All right, so I'm going to grab my lasso tool and I'm going to make a selection. The job that I want to do is I want to get rid of this railing. So I'm going to make a nice selection around the railing. And I'm using my tablet here, which allows me to make a pretty decent selection with my hand. I'm going to hold down my Shift key and get the other side too. So holding down the Shift key is always add. And I'm going to just go ahead and add in. And I'm getting part of the sweater, that's okay. Just gonna add in the rest of this. Add in the bottom part of that I missed. Okay, So now I've got the railing selected. The problem is if I were to do content aware by just hitting delete or bringing up the menu and doing content aware fill, this is what usually, I knew it was going to happen. Every time I do this the other time, like I practiced it earlier today, it does a better job. So let me undo it. Let me try and make it, it's doing it better than it was before. Let me try and make it do it the bad way. Let's maybe grab a little bit more of the sweater. So what happens is when you do these content aware fills sometimes, and again, it's doing a great job. I don't want it to do a great job, but you've been there where it starts to pull in things that it shouldn't be. So let's pull in a little bit of edge of the sweater there. Let me undo it. Let me deselect. Let me try this edge one more time because I really want to show you what happens when it doesn't work. That's what I'm trying to get to. So this is one of those live things where the demo isn't working because the technology is working too good. All right, so let's go and try one more. Oh, God, I can't believe it. Well, what it had been doing is pulling in his sweater into that area. And that's what I don't want it to do. So let me maybe try not selecting so much of the sweater this time. One more time. Because I want to really show you what happens when it doesn't. Oh, let me undo it first. There we go. I really want to show you what happens when it doesn't work. Darn content aware, working good when I'm live. All right, let's try one more time. I give up. All right, so let me show you the technology anyway, even though it's working great now. Let's undo. Let's deselect. Let me try from scratch one more time, and if it works fine, we'll just leave it. But what would happen is when you're trying to do a content aware fill, and it's pulling in the areas from the subject that you don't want, which in this case, it was not doing those things. Let me try it one last time. Here we go. There. That's what I was trying to get to. 5 times is the term. All right, see where it added this whole part of the sweater to the background, and you see where it's adding the sweater to the foreground. When you get in these situations where it's adding something you don't want, oh my God, it's pulling in from the pole that's off to the side, or it's pulling in from a sign, or it's pulling in from some text. It's pulling in from areas you don't want. Undo it, leave it selected, and then go up to your Edit Content Aware Fill menu option. So we're going to do it from the menu option this time. And when we do it from the menu option, you have a choice on what you see. So by default, this confuses me. I don't like the default. The default is sampling area. I don't like that because that throws me off. I always switch this to excluded area, meaning show me the areas that are green, that are off limits. In other words, I want this to be off limits now. So how do I do that? I can now use the brush and add in the areas that are off limits. And better yet, notice it's showing me a preview in the smaller window. So it's letting me know this is what you're going to get as you paint or as you update. So I'm going to take my brush. I'm just going to go in, hold down my Option key, and add this stuff into the excluded area. Don't use any of this. Don't use any of him. Don't use any of the sweater. Don't use any of the vest or anything else in this area. All of this is off limits. So in other words, just use the buildings. Don't use the other stuff. And then when I let go, you'll notice what happened in the preview. The preview is now showing me a better preview. It's showing me, oh, you don't want any of the sweater? By all means, I won't select any of the sweater. So I love this new content aware fill, especially when the example is actually a bad example, when it works. All right, and next up, you can also adjust your color adaptation. It was on default. You can play around with high, very high to try and get maybe more of the texture in that you want in the areas it's going to fill in. Oops, wrong one. Very high. So you can dabble with those. See how it changed it when I switched it to very high? This side actually looks pretty good. That side doesn't look so good. Let me go back to high. Let me go back to default. Default actually looks the best. And let me go to none. Yeah, default actually looks the best in this example. So play around with the color adaptation before you say okay to see if it looks better with what it's doing. Now, This all is shallow depth of field, so it's pulling in more shallow depth of field. It's all blurred. That's okay. But just keep in mind, it's going to pull now from the areas that are not off limits, the areas that are fair game. All right, we'll click OK. And that becomes my new ContentAware Fill. Not pulling in areas that I don't want it to pull in, which is the whole feature. All right, so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And last but not least, we'll talk about the frame tool. Frame tool is also going to be one of my favorites because it just makes laying multiple images out in Photoshop so much easier. So I've got several of my travel images here. I want to pull in one more new one. If I were to do it the old way to fill in this space up here, I'd grab my move tool. I'd grab the new object I want to pull over. Once I pull it over, it's like, okay, scale it down. Ooh, I don't have to hold down the shift key. I can scale that down, get that small enough. But even once I get it small enough, I'd have to mess with it to try and get it to fit within that frame, that area. So I'd have to scale it down and then select it again and then add a mask and then do all those things to try and get it to look right in that spot like the other ones do. But instead, I'm just going to get out of that because I'm going to use the brand new frame tool. So now we're talking about a brand new tool that's been added to Photoshop that didn't exist prior to 2 weeks ago. So if you're an InDesign user, this tool is very familiar to you because you know how frames work. If you're not an InDesign user, then all you would do is just simply drag out a frame like so. And now, again, I'm getting to point out things that I didn't get a chance to point out in the keynote. So you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner, you've got the ability to choose between a rectangular frame or an elliptical frame. You've got your choice. So in this case, I've got the rectangular frame. And now when I drag my image in, it's going to do two things for me. It's going to perfectly scale it down to fit and mask off any areas that are outside the frame. Now, the beauty of this is if you still want to work with the image, you'll notice on the layers panel, it's a different new kind of layer where there's the frame on the left side. So that's what if you click on that, now you're adjusting the frame. Or if you click on the right side, you're adjusting the image. So you get your choice of either one. So now I'm going to hit Command T, and now I'm adjusting the image. And again, not having to hold down the shift key because I can scale it within the frame. I can move it around within the frame. I can get it exactly where I want and then click away to auto commit. So frames are great, but they're not just limited to rectangles and ellipses. So let's switch over to my next document. This is also the one that I showed in the keynote where I had 3 different types of objects converted into frames. I'm going to show you how I did one of those after we get done showing you what they are. So the first one was actually text. This was just type live music using the warp capability to kind of bend it or bow it a little bit, and then right click on the layer and convert to frame. And then once it's a frame, drag in whatever you want. This one is actually, this one is an ellipse that was created with the ellipse tool on the frame. So I'm sorry, with the frame with the ellipse option. So I'll drag in the band into that one. And last but not least, this one's kind of cool because this is a vector image from Adobe stock. So I found, I just searched for guitar, searched for one that was just vectors, copied that one in opened it in Illustrator, copied it and pasted it here and then converted it into a frame. So we'll drag a guitar photo into the guitar vector. So any vector shape can be a frame. It doesn't have to be from Adobe stock. You can go draw one in Illustrator. You can go make one with the pen tool here. But any vector shape can be a frame. All right, so speaking of which, again, I didn't get a chance to demo this. So this is just a regular type layer. If you look on the layers panel, how would you convert this into a frame? Just like I said with all the other examples, except the ones with the frame tool, you would right click and there's a new option that says convert to frame. Right click on the layer, convert to frame. Once you do that, it'll actually pop up and say, oh, what do you want to call this new frame layer? And if it's text, it'll just pick up what the text was. It'll tell you the size of it. And then you click OK. And now you have a new frame layer that you can drag anything into. What happens if you drag something in that's too small? Let's do that. Let's drag in another lighthouse. Oh, the image is too small. It doesn't fill up the word live stream. Well, no problem. Remember what I showed you before. You can either click on the frame and make the frame smaller, or you can click on the image and make the image bigger. So Command T, and again, I'm not going to hold down the Shift key, but I am going to hold down the Option or Alt key so that it scales it from the center out. And it does that proportionally. And once you do that, you can, of course, move it around within the image. We've been doing this for years, but we've just been doing it for other ways in the past. We didn't have an easy way to do this with the frame tool and with these capabilities. So now you got a much easier way to do this. So with that, and it's all non-destructive because, well, the type's gone, but it's all non-destructive from the standpoint of that's just a frame at this point that you can now do anything you want to do with. So with that said, frames are cool. Yes, you can make any vector. Yes, even with the shape tool, you can convert a shape into a frame as well. And I am actually out of time at this point. So I saw lots of comments about, oh, cool, yay, you can do this. Oh, yeah, great. I didn't really see any questions that I hadn't already answered, but with that said, when creating a new frame, it will often pull the background into the frame. Am I doing something wrong? I've had that too, Rod, and that could very well be a bug, or it might just be the way it's designed, but I've had to do that. And what I've simply done is try and lock the layer that I'm going to do it on first, the one below, and then create the layer that I want to be the frame. But because sometimes the frame tool will assume, oh, you converted me into a frame, you must want this background in the frame as well, and that's usually not the case. So I will circle back with the Photoshop team to see if that is in fact a bug or if it's just the way the tool was designed. Hopefully it is a bug, because then that means it can be fixed, because I don't like it when it does that either. All right, so with that said, cheers everybody, thanks for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye everybody, which is tomorrow, same time, 4 o'clock, on the InDesign channel for Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and so forth. So, cheers. Bye, everybody.